You ever try to sell something online, and the moment someone offers you less than you expected, it almost feels insulting? Maybe it's your old car, your phone, or a jacket you haven't worn in years. You think, no way, it's worth more than that. But here's the thing. To everyone else, it's just an object. To you, it's yours. That's the endowment effect in action. It's one of the strangest ways our brains distort value. The second we own something, we start to believe it's worth more than it really is. Not because of greed or logic, but because ownership changes how our minds see things. You can test this right now. Pick something near you. Your mug, your phone case, that old hoodie. Think about giving it away. You might not even use it much, but part of you hesitates. That's your brain whispering, hold on, that's mine. It's the same reason people on Facebook Marketplace list a worn-out sofa for $500 and write, barely used, worth twice as much new. To a stranger, it's just a sofa. To the owner, it's a $500 throne of memories. Psychologists first studied this with something as ordinary as coffee mugs. Half a group of students were given mugs for free. The other half were told they could buy one if they wanted. When asked for a price, the owners wanted around $7. The buyers? Only $3. Same mug, same people, same setting, yet ownership nearly doubled the value in their minds. This gap between reality and perception happens every single day. From garage sales to stock markets to family heirlooms, the mind quietly inflates the worth of what it owns. The moment something becomes mine, it becomes special. And there's an ancient reason for that. The human brain is built to protect what it owns. Thousands of years ago, losing something wasn't just inconvenient, it could mean danger. Food, tools, shelter, everything was scarce. Our ancestors survived by guarding what they already had. That instinct still hums in the background today. Psychologists call this loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing twice as strongly as the joy of gaining. Finding $20 feels nice. Losing 20 hurts a lot more. So when you think about giving something up, even something small, your brain treats it as a threat. That's why saving money can feel hard, and why decluttering sometimes feels like losing part of your story. The objects we own quietly blend with who we are. A car isn't just transportation, it's my car. That guitar isn't just wood and strings, it's my sound. Ownership and identity blur together. You can see this even in kids. A child surrounded by toys will drop into full panic if you touch the one they're holding. They don't care about the others. That one is mine. It's funny, but adults aren't much different. We just hide it behind polite words and price tags. As grown-ups, we still form emotional bonds with things that can't love us back. That's why it's hard to sell your first car, or let go of old sports gear, or delete photos from years ago. Each thing feels like a small piece of who we were. The endowment effect mixes memory, identity, and emotion into one illusion. That value comes from possession. Let's take a look at some places this bias shows up. Start with your closet. You probably have clothes you haven't worn in years. Some don't fit, some aren't your style anymore, yet they stay. When you pull them out, memories come with them. A night out, a trip, a person. The brain says, I can't toss that. It's part of me. That's emotional attachment, the cousin of ownership. Move to the garage. The old mower, the box of cables, the broken lamp. We assign imaginary value to these things. We tell ourselves, I might need this later. That's the sunk cost fallacy. Once we've invested time or money, it's harder to let go. We don't want to feel like we've wasted effort. And it's the same in our digital world. Old phones, emails, screenshots, playlists, we keep them like souvenirs. Deleting a photo can feel like erasing proof that the moment ever existed. But the memory doesn't live in the pixels. It lives in you. Marketers understand all of this perfectly. That's why free trials work so well. Use a product for a few days, and your brain starts to feel ownership. When the trial ends, you feel a tiny loss. That discomfort pushes you to buy. Real estate agents use the same trick when they tell you to imagine your furniture in the house you're viewing. The second you do, your brain quietly stamps it as mine. That feeling makes it harder to walk away. It's the endowment effect before you even own the thing. You can even see this in investing. People hold on to losing stocks because selling would mean admitting a mistake. They think, it'll come back. Their identity gets tied to the decision, so letting go feels like failure. We do this with ideas, too. Once we form an opinion, we guard it like property. In arguments, people stop listening because they're busy protecting ownership of their view. We even use words like my belief, my stance. We treat opinions like possessions. Then there's sentimentality, the emotional side of ownership. People keep letters, gifts, souvenirs, and clothes because they carry emotion. A child's drawing, a necklace from someone you loved. These objects become emotional anchors. They remind you of who you were, and that comfort is powerful. But sometimes they hold us in place. Clearing out a family home after a loss can feel impossible. Every item feels like a memory. You know you can't keep it all, but letting go feels like losing the person again. That's not weakness, it's human. The mind attaches meaning to things as a way of keeping love alive. Understanding this doesn't mean you must live empty-handed. It means you can notice the bias as it happens. You can ask, do I really need this? Or do I just like the feeling that it's mine? That small question is a door to freedom. Let's bring this bias into the places we all live every day. Your kitchen drawers, your garage, that shelf full of just-in-case items. Every human has them. Cables for devices you no longer own. Spare screws you'll never match. Random chargers from another lifetime. You tell yourself, I might need that one day, but deep down, you know you won't. That's not logic. That's ownership whispering. The brain hates to lose. Even losing something useless feels wrong. You could throw away an old TV remote, and for the next week, your brain will try to convince you that you just threw away the most valuable remote on Earth. It'll say, you'll find the TV it belongs to someday. That's the endowment effect playing defense. And it's not just about clutter. It's about how ownership ties us to the past. Every object in your home is like a photograph of who you used to be. The guitar you promised you'd learn. The treadmill that turned into a coat rack. The books you never finished. They remind you of your intentions, your past hopes, and sometimes your guilt. That's why letting go can feel emotional. It's not only losing the thing, it's admitting the story attached to it has ended. Let's take something simple, your phone. If you break it, even if the screen is cracked beyond repair, you'll still hesitate before replacing it. You'll think, maybe I can fix it. That's because it isn't just a phone anymore. It's your photos, your messages, your fingerprints on the glass. Ownership turns it into a small piece of identity. Neuroscience shows that the same regions of the brain that process self-identity light up when people think about things they own. To your brain, mine and me overlap. So when you lose something important, the brain reacts like you've lost a part of yourself. That's also why we personalize everything we buy. A new car doesn't feel like ours until we've adjusted the seat, hung a charm from the mirror, maybe added a small scratch that makes it unique. Once we've left a mark, the brain claims it completely. We do it online, too. We organize our home screens, name our Wi-Fi, choose profile pictures. We mark our digital territory. It's the 21st century version of cave paintings. Now, all of this could sound negative, but it isn't. Attachment isn't a flaw. It's what makes humans care. The same instinct that makes you hold on to old objects also helps you nurture relationships and protect what you love. It becomes unhealthy only when it blinds us, when the object starts to own us instead of the other way around. That's why it helps to step back now and then. Ask yourself what each thing is really giving you. Is it comfort? Or is it just fear of loss dressed up as comfort? Minimalism movements build on this idea, but they often oversimplify it. Owning less isn't automatically better. What matters is owning consciously. Keeping things because they serve you or inspire you, not because your brain has quietly glued them to your identity. This awareness can change how you spend, how you save, even how you think about generosity. When you understand that giving something away triggers a sense of loss, you can choose to feel pride instead of pain. You can think, I'm passing this on. I'm letting it live a new story. That small shift turns loss into connection. Let's move to money for a minute. The endowment effect shows up hard in finances. People hold on to bad investments far longer than they should. They keep struggling businesses alive because letting them fail feels like losing a piece of self-worth. You'll hear phrases like, I built this from nothing, I can't give up now. Emotion overrules logic. We also overvalue the money already in our accounts. When a bill comes, we hesitate to spend even if it's necessary. Yet if the same money came as a refund or bonus, we spend it easily. It's called mental accounting. The mind labels money differently depending on where it came from. Once it's in your wallet, it becomes mine, and spending it feels like loss. This is why people sometimes cling to bad purchases, too. You buy an expensive jacket that doesn't quite fit. You don't return it. You tell yourself you'll wear it someday. You won't. But your brain insists on keeping it because returning it feels like admitting defeat. You end up with a closet full of someday clothes, someday jeans, someday shoes, someday versions of yourself that probably aren't coming back. Understanding this pattern can be freeing. You realize that attachment isn't proof of value, it's proof of emotion. You can honor what something meant without having to keep it. That's not throwing away meaning. That's separating memory from matter.
Let me tell you a story about a man named Greg. Greg collected baseball cards as a kid. Boxes of them filled his closet. He kept them for decades, certain they were valuable. When he finally checked, most were worth pennies. But when a dealer offered him $200 for the whole set, he refused. He said, "They're worth more than that." The dealer smiled and said, "Only to you." Greg kept them another 10 years. When he finally donated them to a children's center, he told me he felt lighter. He said, "I realized I was guarding my childhood, not my cards." That's the power of seeing the endowment effect clearly. You start to recognize that most of what you protect is feeling, not function. Let's widen the lens again. Entire societies fall into this bias. Nations fight over land not because of objective value, but because of ownership identity. History is filled with wars fueled by ours versus theirs. The human brain scales the same pattern, from a single mug to an entire country. Ownership is powerful. It builds civilization and conflict in equal measure. Understanding that helps us build compassion. It reminds us that behind every argument about property or territory is the same human fear of losing what feels like mine. On a personal level, we can use that knowledge to live with more ease. You don't have to stop caring about things. You just learn to care without clinging. Awareness doesn't erase attachment, but it softens it. It gives you the space to ask better questions before you buy.
before you keep, and before you fight to hold on. That's where freedom begins. Not in having nothing, but in knowing why you have what you do. Let's bring this home, to the emotional heart of ownership, because this isn't really a story about mugs or money. It's about attachment. The way the mind links things to identity, and the way learning to let go can quietly change your life. Think about your home for a moment. Every object tells a story. The couch where you fall asleep watching TV, the painting your friend gave you, the shoes by the door that carry 1,000 little miles of your life. They're not just items. They're your private museum, and in a way, they tell you who you are. That's why moving house can feel like emotional surgery. You start packing, and suddenly everything has meaning. You can't believe how attached you are to old notebooks, empty jars, or that one mug with a chip that you never even use. Every item you touch whispers, "Keep me. I've been with you."
This is the endowment effect wrapped in nostalgia. It's not just fear of loss. It's the tenderness of memory. The past feels alive through the things we keep. And our brains love that. They crave the security of continuity, proof that we've lived, proof that we've mattered. But there's a quiet cost. Every item we hold on to takes up a small bit of mental space. It carries unfinished energy, the weight of stories we're not ready to release. That's why clutter feels stressful. Your environment becomes a conversation with your past, and sometimes that conversation gets loud. When people start decluttering, they often describe a strange experience. At first, it's uncomfortable. Then, suddenly, it's liberating. Letting go of things doesn't erase who you are. It just turns down the noise. It reminds you that identity lives in memory, not in material. There's real science behind that peace. Studies have found that clutter increases cortisol, the stress hormone. It also drains focus and decision-making power. The more stuff you own, the more your brain has to process, even subconsciously. That's why minimal spaces often feel calm. They're not empty, they're quiet. Here's the thing most people miss about the endowment effect. It's not really about what we value. It's about why. Our brains give meaning to ownership because it provides emotional stability. But once you see that clearly, you can keep the stability without the excess. You start keeping things for love, not fear. You start spending for intention, not impulse. You stop mistaking having for being. And that's when life gets lighter, literally and figuratively. You find that giving away something you don't need can feel as good as buying something new once did. You realize that mine isn't the same as me. That's the paradox of ownership. The less you cling, the more you appreciate. When you stop trying to make things permanent, you start enjoying them while they last. That's true for objects, experiences, even relationships. We live in a world that constantly tells us more is better. More possessions, more upgrades, more everything. But the science of the mind says something different. Satisfaction doesn't come from owning more. It comes from understanding what you already have and being at peace with it. You can use that awareness in simple, practical ways. Before you buy something, pause and ask, will this add value or just add weight? Before you keep something, ask, would I want this if I didn't already own it? Those two questions alone can save you from 1,000 small regrets.
It's not about turning your life into a minimalist show home. It's about reclaiming your space, physical, mental, emotional. When you release what no longer serves you, you make room for what truly matters. And sometimes, what matters isn't even a thing. It's a feeling, peace of mind, freedom from guilt, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're not owned by what you own. Let me share something I once heard from a woman named Lena. After her parents passed away, she spent 2 years sorting through their house. Every box felt impossible to open. Every drawer was full of memories. When she finally finished, She said something simple. She said, "I realized I wasn't keeping my parents alive by keeping their stuff. I was keeping my grief alive." That moment changed her. She started keeping fewer things, but cherishing them more. That's the essence of understanding ownership. It's not about detachment from love. It's about separating love from possession. The people we've loved, the moments we've lived, they're already ours. We don't need things to prove it. So maybe the next time you clean out a drawer, or hesitate to sell something, or argue over a price, remember this. You're not crazy for feeling attached. You're just human. Your brain evolved to protect what it thinks you need to survive. But now, survival looks different. It's not about keeping. It's about knowing when to release. Because ownership can be beautiful, but only when you choose it consciously. When you buy something, let it be because it truly adds to your life. When you keep something, let it be because it still brings you joy. And when you let go, do it with gratitude, not guilt. The endowment effect is just a mirror, showing us how our minds mix love, fear, and meaning into everything we touch. When you see that clearly, you start to own your choices instead of your things. So take a deep breath. Look around your space. Everything you see once felt important. Some of it still is. Some of it isn't. And that's okay. Because growth isn't about what you lose. It's about what you learn to carry lightly. Owning less doesn't mean losing more. It means living with awareness. It means choosing with intention. And it means remembering that the most valuable things you'll ever own aren't things at all.